press the wrong buttons.
Hi.
And the more times I do something, the more I press the wrong buttons.
Don't press any buttons, but we're live right now.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Rachel from Ray K Books, and today we are going to talk with Sherry Thomas, who is the author of the Burning Sky series. Hello, Sherry.
Hi, Rachel. Nice to be here.
I'm very glad that you're here. So today we're going to be talking about the second book of your Burning Sky series, The Perilous Sea, that comes out next week. That is exciting. So can you please tell everybody a synopsis of The Perilous Sea?
Well, the short one is a boy and a girl wake up in the desert. They don't know who they are. They don't know how they get there. But they do know they're being hunted.
Very nice.
That's my favorite synopsis of it, because that's what I like to read. Like when I wrote the Burning Sky, I always joke that it was my Matrix, in the sense that it is not the Matrix movie, of course, but I wrote it so that at one point there was a draft that matched the Matrix beat by beat. So at some point something will happen in the Matrix, something will be happening in my book. So it matched the Matrix beat by beat. That ended up not being the draft that was published, but such a draft existed. And so for the second book, I always wanted this to be my born identity. I wanted them to not have their memories and to have to, learn everything about each other from scratch.
Wow.
Except I want the girl to be the one that's chased and not the boy.
So things are a little switched up now.
Yes.
Were the fans kind of irritated of the change?
About what?
About the change of direction?
Oh no. Actually, response from readers have been very positive, because what happens is the book is set on a parallel storyline. We have like two parallel timelines, or I should say, we have a double timeline. So in the first timeline, we see our protagonists in the Sahara Desert, not knowing what's going on and not knowing whether they can trust each other. And in the other timeline, which starts 7 weeks before that, everything was normal. So then it becomes what happened in these 7 weeks, so that they ended up in the desert, in the middle of danger, not knowing what's going on.
Right. All right. So we are going to, I'm going to ask you some Twitter questions, because we have a lot. So we have a lot from one girl named Bethany. So we're going to get to hers in a second. So the first one.
We have a couple from Jen too.
Yep, there's some from Jen. So actually 2 people, 2 mega fans. And so, but that will get us through a lot of time. The first one is from Jen, and she asks, where did you get the idea to include the Crucible in the Perilous Sea?
I am always shocked that nobody's ever said this, but it's basically the construct from the Matrix. If you remember the movie The Matrix, they get uploaded into these computer systems, right? Mm-hmm. Then they can put on whatever kind of cool clothes, and they have all kind of cool weapons for them to use if they want to do. And the setting in the construct can change at a moment. You'll be walking down the street and you see this beautiful blonde, beautiful girl in a red dress, and you turn around and she's got a gun pointed at you. So I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And of course, when I made my version, I made it a more fantasy-like. So I'm like, well, what's a fantasy version of that kind of virtual reality, which is fairy tales? You can go into every fairy tale you've ever wanted to, and plus some more I made up. Just to have more dangerous ways. So you can go into these fairy tales, because in fairy tales they're always like dragons to fight and other kind of dangerous situations. So it gives our protagonists a good training ground for the kind of battle they are going to do with magic later on. So that's what the Crucible is. It's a magical training ground using fairy tales.
So twice now you have talked about The Matrix. Is that really your favorite movie?
It might be one of my favorite movies. It's certainly whenever I'm not looking to see The Matrix again, but certainly whenever I'm looking to have a really good experience at the movies, I say to myself, where is my next movie that's going to make me feel like The Matrix did? Yeah. Because I love action and I love romance, and Matrix has action enough romance to satisfy me. So that's for me like pretty perfect.
Very nice. And so we have another question, and that is, do Bryony, is that how you say it, Bryony?
Bryony, yeah.
And Leo ever? Yeah. Okay. Does Bryony and Leo ever have kids?
Okay, so that is a question from one of my romance novels. My YA people might not have heard it, but it's called Not Quite a Husband, and the heroine is infertile, and I don't think I will throwing a miracle pregnancy anywhere, but I do believe at some point a child is going to come into their life. So not a biological child, but they might become foster parents to someone.
So I saw on your website that you do romance as well. Is this your first young adult? Because I was looking at all your books and all of them were romance, but The Burning Sky was young adult. So is this your first attempt?
Yes, yes. Yeah, actually, it's the first time I've ever written a young adult book and then got it published. So before that, I was just pretty happily doing historical romance.
Wow, that's quite a change, really, romance to young adult. So what made you like change your? Because this isn't even historical. So not only did you change, the age range, but you changed what genre it is.
Fantasy, right? Well, it wasn't. I mean, I had always wanted to write something my children could read. So it wasn't, and I always thought I would write science fiction. That I wrote as many romances as I did was a surprise to myself. Yeah, actually, how it came about was there were some young adult professionals, people in the publishing business who had read my romance books and thought that I might make an okay young adult writer. So they said, we're interested in seeing how your voice works in young adult. And they even specifically mentioned maybe something like Graceling with a Chinese band, because I was born and brought up in China, and I came here when I was 13. And I always, whenever we got that question, I always say, well, that's awfully nice, but I have no intention of writing young adult anything at the moment. We'll keep it in mind. And then just one day I was walking across a Costco parking lot, and a line dropped into my head. It said, on the night I was born, stars fell. It never went into the book because the book ended up being written in third person, not first person. But it just intrigued me so much, and I think because I have been asked whether I wanted to do young adult, I immediately asked myself, is this a young adult, story idea? And I guess just as immediately decided that yes, it is. So that's how it happened. And once I started writing, I couldn't stop. I think this probably correlates with.
Yeah, what were the What was the, sorry, you kind of bugged out a second. What were the challenges for starting this new adventure of young adult?
It was a pretty steep learning curve. I think one of the questions Bethany asked was, usually I draft my books again and again. Did that happen with The Burning Sky? Yes, The Burning Sky went through 6 drafts, 2 as partials and 4 complete drafts as full manuscripts. I think if it were a book under contract, we wouldn't have been able to go through that many drafts and just keep refining it. But because it wasn't under contract, my agent just wanted to make sure it's as good as it can be before she takes out to shop it. So the challenges were many. First, there was a challenge of it not becoming a herb gathering fantasy, as we call it, because you know how sometimes there used to be a while ago when every fantasy book started with somebody in the forest gathering herbs or something of the sort, and I almost had a herb gathering scene at the beginning of the book, and so there's that aspect of building a world that is, you know, familiar yet different enough, because that's what people always want. When you heard me say I want, you know, to see the Matrix again, I don't want to see the Matrix again, but I want something that's at once recognizable yet different and fresh. So that's the challenge in the world building part. And then, my gosh, we had to write the back end of that book so many times, because every time I write it, my agent will be like, no, there's no motivation for them to do something like that. No, that's still not right. Still not right. I think at one point I almost asked her whether her co-agent could take a look at it, just but we persevered. And then after all that, and the funny thing is I am a romance writer, right? So after all that, after my editor bought it, what did she want me to do? She wanted me to beef up the romance, because we were so involved with the world building and the plot. We didn't forget about the romance, but some place we're just kind of like, yes, they are having some conflict. Yes, they are having, you know, growing closer together. We're just kind of like, let it speak for itself. And obviously it wasn't speaking for itself, so we actually had to write it out. Yes, I am looking at you with stars in my eyes, something like that. So yes, we had to fix.
That's
everything.
Really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's really interesting that that the editor said there has to be more romance in it. So why did there have to be more romance? Like, what was that decision for?
Oh no, it wasn't that there needed to be more romance. It was that the romance needed to be written better. So the romance was always woven in. The romance was always an integral part. But what she wanted was, what we were doing was line edit, basically. So it was like, okay, I wanted to feel more stuff here. And here, I want the scene to have more emotional impact, so on and so forth. That's what my editor wanted, and she wanted the exact right things. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So we have another Twitter question, and that is, the Perilous Sea isn't your second book, but it's a second of the trilogy. Was it difficult or different to write?
It was both. It was difficult to write in the sense that every when I write books, I always think of the process as, and this kind of astonished my friends, because when I talk to my friends, they're like, when they write, they think about theme, they think about, you know, motif and things like that. I never think about things like that. All I think about is, where do I put what? Like, which piece of information do I put at which place in the book so that it will have maximum impact? So basically, I feel like I'm almost like a programmer trying to organize my code so that it will flow smoothly. So with the Perilous Sea, we again had the same problem. There's a lot of information to convey. How much do I want to put in there, and when, and at what point? So from the first draft, there was one part that was always the same, which is that, you know, they suddenly had to question one of their central beliefs about, because in the first book there was a prophecy, and in the second book suddenly the prophecy is called into question, and they have to wonder what to do about it, and you know how it impacts the Titus and Yolanda, which are the two protagonists, how it impacts their relationship, and how does it impact everything. But then it's like, when do they know this? What did Yolanda do during the summer? Because they were at the end of the first book, they go off. They're supposed to have this wonderful summer together, but you know, such things never happen in books. You know, nobody can be happy for too long in a book, or people who stop reading. So what happens in that summer? When does she get back to school? And at what point does this book end? Do they ever get to the desert part? So that was all those sort of questions. So I wrote. So of this book is, I said, it's about a boy and girl waking up in the desert. The first draft of the Perilous Sea, they didn't even get to the desert. The book ended before they got to the desert. So then I chucked half of that draft and put it in the desert and reorganized into an alternating timeline thing. So as I said, it's all about time, like information, how to organize the information for me.
And then another question is, oh, I just lost my place. Okay. How did you decide the world in which to set your Elemental Trilogy? Can you give us a little background on the Elemental Trilogy?
Oh, the Elemental Trilogy is just what the Burning Sky, the Perilous Sea, and the upcoming the Immortal Heights are called, because in this book there is both what I call subtle magic and there's elemental magic. So subtle magic is magic you do with your spells, with words and with incantations and, maybe with potions and stuff like that. No, not here, darling. If you have a question, go ask that. Can you close the door, please? Thank you. Yeah, it's one of my children. Yeah, and elemental magic is a more primordial form of magic in which the elemental mage can directly control the elements. And so the world in which they live in is basically a world in which elemental mage has been declining for centuries until now. Mostly it's like subtle magic. Everything is done with subtle magic, and there are fewer elemental mages, and the ones that are there are not that powerful. And yet everybody's out there looking for a truly powerful elemental mage. So that's the background on the magical part of the book. But this book, we have mage realms and non-mage realms kind of existing side by side, but kind of hidden. So the non-mages don't know there are mages, but the mages do know there are non-mages, even though they live apart from them. Except not in the same country. They tend to have their own countries. And so what I think Bethany was asking about the background is that why was it set half in Victorian England? Because in the Burning Sky, most of the action take place in a boarding school, in a boys' boarding school in Victorian England, and not in a mage realm. That's because remember the line that dropped into my head? On the night I was born, stars fell. So I decided to take it seriously. I decided that stars fell meant that there was tons of meteors that night streaking across the sky, and not just like your normal Leonid meteor shower where you have to go stand outside for several minutes before you see a meteor come by. I decided it was a meteor storm, so that stars basically would fall like rain. And I actually went home and Googled it. I was like, when was the last time there was a major meteor storm? And that was in 1866. So if I have protagonists born in 1866, my books will be set in the early 1880s. And in the early 1880s, so I wanted them to be at school. I don't want them just running around, I wanted to be at school, and so I thought, no, they cannot be at a magic school, because magic school has been done, and it has been done perfectly. There's no point, trying to make a competing magic school. It just won't be as good. So I decided to set them in a Muggle school, so to speak. And in the 1880s, the only good Muggle schools are boarding schools for boys. And so I was like, hey, this is a cross-dressing book then, because for me, being a girl is like no point writing a book without a girl in it. So yeah, that's how the background came about. Why they were going to a Eton College, which is actually a real school, one of the most famous boarding school boys schools in the world. Yeah, that's how it came about.
So Stephanie asks, do you already know how the trilogy will end?
Do I already know how the trilogy will end? I think I do. But the thing about I think I do is that a lot of times when I get to the end of the book, I don't end in the same place as I thought I would. But usually I end in a better place, because through the writing, the book grows organically, and it takes you to a better ending than what you think will be the ending before you have seen what the characters go through.
And then we have another question. What motivates you when you don't feel like writing?
Deadlines will motivate me any day of the week. I do not like breaking contracts. When people are counting on me, I am famous for, well, not famous, but I am known for my terrible first drafts. But usually when the deadline comes, I will give you something. As bad as it is, we can fix it. But I will give you something, and then we go from there. And that's just what my motivation is. I'm not particularly picky about what I write in the first draft, because first draft gets thrown out anyway. So as long as we have a first draft, that's after the first draft is done is when the work really starts.
All right, so we are now going to switch gears, and we are going to play a game called Would You Rather.
Oh, God. I will not eat poop no matter what.
No. This is literature edition. So this is all about books.
Oh, okay, sure.
Yes, I'm not going to do that for you.
The previous time I seen this game played on a talk show, I almost threw up.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that the questions aren't going to be hard, though. They're going to be a little difficult.
Sure.
So, for those of you who don't know what Would You Rather is, I would ask Sherry something like, would you rather eat apples or oranges for the rest of your life? Except, again, this is about books. So, the first one...
Oranges all the way, yes.
Oranges. They're wonderful.
I love oranges.
Would you rather fight next to Hermione from Harry Potter or Katniss from the Hunger Games?
Hermione.
Would you rather read a book that is written poorly but has an excellent story, or read one with weak content but is written well?
Oh, always. I'm a seeker of stories, so always. If a book has a really good story, I will barely notice the writing.
Would you rather, or no, who would you rather have as a child? Harry Potter or Hermione Granger?
You know what? I do not have a daughter, and that is something I regret greatly. So Hermione again.
Okay. Would you rather write novels where all the characters are women or all men for the rest of your writing career?
Ooh, this is terrible.
It's not poop, but it's just as bad.
This is a terrible question, because I am a romance writer at heart, and I like there to be both men and women. Gosh.
I guess you can't write romance novels anymore after this.
No, I will have to write. I'll have to write lesbian romances then. If I have to choose, I guess I will write about women, rather than men, for the rest of my life. But I'm so glad I don't have to.
Would you rather only write your books in trilogies or standalones for the rest of your writing career?
Well, until I started this trilogy, I have only ever written standalone books, and I wrote one romance trilogy, but in romance, even when people say a trilogy, each book is a standalone story. So I have a huge fondness for standalone books, but now that I've written connected books featuring the same protagonist on the same long story arc, I really, really, really like it. So if I have to choose, yes, series. I would choose series over standalone books, because,
you have a new love for it.
I'm sorry?
You have a new love for it.
Yeah, because it's interesting to revisit the same characters, to see them grow in a longer time span and with more events. I mean, recently I published recently I had a romance published, and I self-published a prequel that went with it. So combined, it's a book that spanned almost 20 years. So
wow.
And I really enjoy writing that. Yeah. So the characters started as children, basically.
The next one is, would you rather write a book without using conjunctions or have every sentence of your book begin with one?
Without using conjunctions means you can't use and?
Everything, just all conjunctions. Not have them at all, or have every sentence of your book begin with one.
What other conjunctions are there? Give them to me.
There's like or, but. I think those are the conjunctions. Stuff that.
So
like,
so my choice is
sentences.
to write with none of them, or start every sentence with and.
Yeah. Kind of.
Yeah, none of them, because starting every sentence with and will drive me and the reader up the wall within like 2 pages, I believe.
Then the good thing this is hypothetical.
Yes.
Okay, so the next one is, would you rather write a plot twist you hated or write a character you hated?
I have never written a character I hated. Not in the end, anyway. But I have written plot twists I hated. So yes, I would go with plot twists that I hate.
All right. And then the next one is, would you rather a super successful movie be made from one of your books or a long-lasting television series?
Huh. Well, that is a speaking of embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, so pretty much, which one is more appealing? They're both like win-win situations.
At the moment, I think I might have to go with TV, because the quality of TV these days is quite incredible. And so yeah, I feel that a long format narrative packs more of an emotional wallop at the end.
And then the last one is, would you rather critics rip your book apart publicly or never talk about it at all?
Oh, I've been published for a while, so I've had bad reviews. Not a problem. Oh, you mean do they only rip it apart? There's no positive review at all compared to.
I don't know. Let's just say like top critics rip it apart.
Oh, versus it not being talked about at all? Yeah, I'll take the publicity. Yeah.
Perfect. And that concludes our Would You Rather game. Yay!
Woo-hoo! That was a
good
fun
job.
game.
Yes, I'm glad. I'm glad you found it fun. So we're nearing the end of our chat.
Okay.
So I have a few more questions for you. And the first one is, what do you have coming up? What's next?
Well, I am working on book 3 of the Elemental Trilogy. So there's that. And
when's the release day?
Release day is tentatively September of next year. But of course, that's, conditional on how fast and well I can write it. I'm still in the middle of it, but I think it shouldn't be any problem. With the last book, I was about same point at this much time before publication. And after that, I don't know how long that will take, because I'm still in the first draft and revisions and revisions and revisions. So if there's time, I will fit in a contemporary romance somewhere that I would like to bring out, maybe early next year. If not, I go straight into a set of historical mysteries. So,
nice.
Because remember you were saying about series, because that will be a series with the same detective, and I want a super smart girl sleuth. That's.
You're hooked. You're hooked into trilogies now.
I am. But these are not young adult books. They are mysteries for the adult market. But there's no reason why young people can't read them.
Do you think that you're gonna be writing any new young adult series anytime soon, or are you just gonna go into adult a little bit longer?
I don't know. I mean, I have never left romance while I write young adult. So, I have never said to myself, well, I'm hanging up my young adult hat after this. So we'll just see what happens. I don't have any concrete plans now because my head is so much in the third book right now. I can't think of anything else. But if I have good ideas in the future, if people wanted to publish them, then I will be more than happy to keep writing young adult books.
So we have another Twitter question from Stephanie, and she asks, what are your favorite characters, or who did you like writing the most in the Elemental Trilogy?
In the Elemental Trilogy, I have to say, it's probably Cooper. Cooper is a side character who is quite in awe of the prince. He's he's a little bit of a squealy boy, and the prince is just kind of, I guess, somewhat badass and rude and kind of glacially magnificent in public, and he's always kind of little starry-eyed when he looks at the prince, and it's just. And I don't think people saw so much of Cooper in book 1, but there's more of him in book 2, where it gets fun. So I think usually side characters are authors' favorite characters, right? Because because they come and go. You don't have to devote entire month of your life to them.
Very nice. So, one more question, and then we're done.
Yeah.
And then the torture is over.
No.
Yeah, ha ha ha. Okay, so the last question I have is, what is some advice you have for aspiring writers?
I always give the exact same thing, which is to read, because you will best learn writing by writing, and for me, the best way to learn how to write is just to absorb it via reading. See how other authors do their characterization, plotting, and world building, and how they manage to fit it all together. It's just and besides, it's fun to read good books. So my advice is always to read the best books you can find. Don't try to read bad books and try to figure out what went wrong. Read the best books and see if you can duplicate what went right.
Right. Excuse me, good advice. So now we're going to be talking about the giveaway, because Sherry here is amazing and is going to give away her book, Burning Sky, which is the first of the trilogy that we're talking about. And if you're USA and you win, you get a signed book, plus you get a tote bag, a Burning Sky tote bag. If you're Canada or international, then you get the book via the book depository. So it's not going to be signed, but it's a book, so be happy. You win. So this will end the 15th, and in order to win, this live chat window right here is going to become a YouTube video. And when it becomes a YouTube video, I would like you to comment on that video. And then the second thing you should do, this is optional because not everybody has a Twitter, is to follow Sherry on Twitter. And if you do, then put your username in the comments so I can verify the entry. And that's it. Thank you so much, Sherry. This was a pleasurable time. I had a great time talking with you.
Thank you so much, Rachel, for inviting me. And everything went so smoothly. I was expecting technical Armageddon, and
I'm
totally thrilled that didn't happen.
Right, when we were talking before, you're like, oh, I don't know if this is going to go well for me, like in the internet. And I'm like, I hope not. So we're good. We're good.
Yes.
Okay, so thank you, and I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.